Hey, everybody.
Hey,
Welcome to the Cinemondo podcast with Kathy and Mark.
no
No,
Burke.
Burke. Burke.
Burke is busy. I think he's at the beach or something, doing something relaxing.
No, I think he's working.
I think he's in jail, but we'll pretend like it didn't happen.
So it's just us two today talking about a film that we both saw recently and both really liked.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get into that, let's ask our wonderful listeners and viewers to like, subscribe, and comment, please.
That's right.
Yes.
Please do it because we love interacting with you guys. So we want to hear
Yeah.
your opinions on stuff.
Yeah, and we did a live broadcast on YouTube about a week and a half ago, and that was fun. We're going to do more of those too, and that's great to get comments from people that are watching and listening. So, more of that to come. Maybe
Definitely
even
more
next week. We'll see. So, some special guests and everything. But today we're going to talk about a movie that came out in October of 2020, and I remember I read a review of it when it came out, and it got really glowing reviews. But the movie just came and went because it was, of course, released during the pandemic, and it went to some theaters, but it obviously didn't do very well. But now it showed up on Hulu, which all the interesting movies are showing up on Hulu lately.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's like every time there's a cool movie, I'm like, oh, where's it streaming? At Hulu? It's like, well, okay, now we saw like an ad for Hulu, but it's the truth. I mean, I subscribe to them all, so because I have to.
Right. It's just that they're on a streak of like, oh, that's a movie I want to watch. Oh, that's a movie I want to see.
It's weird. It's just really strange. But this is like a real gem, I have to say. I mean, I was kind of blown away. And, part of it, I think I just didn't pay attention because anything called Love and Monsters, I'm like, oh, it's going to be like a kid's movie. I don't need to watch it, because they're kind of pitching it to be a little young. So I wasn't really paying attention. I just thought it was going to be a YA. And sometimes I like that, but it was like, title. Yeah. But then you watched it and you were like, you got to watch this movie. I'm like, I'll just throw it on. I was blown away. Like, wow, this is so good.
It's so like a weird throwback. It's like a movie that is somewhere in between. It's not a kid's movie, but kids can enjoy it, certainly. And teenagers will love it. And adults like ourselves find it exciting and fun. Yeah. Has some heart to it. It's sweet. The characters are likable. There's great effects, and it's a medium budget. It was released by Paramount, huge studio, but it was only $25 million budget, which is a low budget for a big studio.
And deservedly was nominated for a special visual effects Oscar, which it deserved it. I don't know what won. I don't remember, but it didn't win, but it was nominated, and I'm glad it was because considering the budget, this was some really genius effects. I mean, they were seamless. They were really nicely done.
Really nicely done. So, and there's not a lot of big stars in it. Michael Rooker, we all know from, and he's great in it. Dylan O'Brien has been in the Maze Runner trilogy and some other YA
he was super
stuff.
Cute.
Super
very,
good.
Very cute.
Yeah. So it's a winner. Let's run the trailer.
We've already given our review. No one needs to watch anymore because they know we love it.
Yes, you do.
But here we go.
Okay.
Right, I'm going to run the trailer. Usually I don't love narration, but I thought his narration was really clever and fun, and it totally fit this sort of little cynical, sarcastic, voiceover that I thought added a lot of cool humor to it. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, and the opening is like you get the backstory of why the Earth is kind of, the population has been 95% decimated, and it's done in a, believe it or not, kind of humorous, funny way with some really great visuals and some animation, and it kind of sets the tone. It's serious, but he's just living through this, and he's got to deal with it however he can. That's what you would do. It's really well written by Brian Duffield, who did Underwater, that film that was pretty good too.
I did like that.
He's an interesting, and it was directed by Michael Matthews, a South African filmmaker. And this is his first. This is his second film. His first film was a South African film that was widely regarded, called Five Fingers for Marcellus, which I haven't seen.
Well, this makes me want to watch it. If he's, because this was pretty accomplished, especially for a second film. Yes. I mean, I don't want to oversell this film, but I was expecting, when you see like a low budget kind of monster movie, you're like, yeah, okay, I kind of you set your expectations at a certain level. So when it exceeds those expectations, I'm like, oh my God, genius. But, it's just a really fun, well-made, film. I think my only complaints were I did not like the love interest. I thought she was super boring. I did not think she was worth the trip. I didn't think she was worth it. So, but then along the way, he meets Michael Rooker and, the young girl. And I really wanted to see that story, when they left the story, I was kind of sad because the movie lost a lot of heart when those people left the scene. So
I felt the same way because they were so. It was like if I was in the character's name was Joel. If I was in Joel's shoes, I would probably say, I'm going to go with these two. They know how to. I'll go north. But there's a great sort of like coda ending with them, like where they end up and feel, if this movie was successful, I could easily see a sequel.
Yeah.
Like
in the mountains,
up there in the mountains,
which was the whole point. Like they apparently, and I guess, they had a great intro that, was sort of like a sort of primitive illustration where they describe what had happened to the earth about blowing up a meteor. And then all this crap hit the earth and destroyed it basically and mutated all the lower, animal life, like, the snails and bugs and crabs in the ocean, everything got monstrous.
Right.
So the humans, of course, when it comes right down to it, we're pretty helpless when it comes right down to it, unless we have weapons. So, we're overtaken pretty fast. There's just little enclaves of survivors, and they're just basically been run underground. And I kind of liked the inverse of when the animals take over the surface of the earth and we drive everything away like we're doing with animals. It's like they have to stay out of our way. So I did kind of enjoy that message.
Yeah, it's very smart. And the story is that there are these underground bunkers where people are living, colonies. Yeah. And his girlfriend, you see some flashbacks to their relationship. You saw it in the beginning of the trailer.
Girlfriend.
She's 85 miles away. And that's to get through, 85 miles is quite, it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
But that's the story. Yeah. And he meets a beautiful, sweet dog that helps him out immeasurably along the way.
Yeah. And that dog was great.
Boy. Dog does not die.
Boy.
So if anybody's like,
boy. I know it's a little bit of a spoiler, dog doesn't die, but that's the stuff I appreciate because when I saw the dog appear, I was stressing, and then Mark told me it didn't die, so I felt better. And I always look at the dog doesn't die app. So I was checking.
It was too good of a dog, too nice of a dog, too much of an important character.
He's in peril though, a few times.
He was.
He's in peril.
He also
and there were a few little things along the way, like where he encounters a kind of AI robot, which was actually kind of a cool, it was kind of a cool little magical moment where that's more humanity from this robot, like more intelligent, almost an empathy than that he was getting from a lot of people he knew. It's like he felt like he was kind of the guy. He wasn't very brave. He wasn't good with guns, and so he was kind of like, "You, Joel, you just stay back here. We'll take care of it." And he didn't feel like he was being respected, which was another reason he wanted to be on the road and go find his girlfriend, because he felt like she saw value in him. So that was, I think, one of his, he was in love with her and he felt like she would appreciate and respect him.
Right. He's just stuck in there. He's basically the cook. Just make the minestrone soup. And that's all. And you're going to die out there in 2 seconds. And early on, he does freeze in one scene and he gets bailed out by somebody. But later on, he sort of gets his medal and figures it out. But it's I was okay with the love interest. I mean, she was fine, but
it's not her fault. It's like I feel like the character was a little underwritten, and I think part of it was she was kind of a cipher for his fantasy of like what he was going to get when he got there, and of course it doesn't work out the way he wants. We're talking spoilers, and
but that's a good plot point that he sort of had this fantasy in his head, because this has been 7 years since the end of the earth, and then him going out there. 7 years, a lot can happen. You can fall in and out of love. Lots of stuff can happen. So that just adds to the sort of the human part of it, the sweet part of it. And at the end, it's kind of strangely, weirdly emotional. Like you feel good.
Yeah.
And there's a really wonderful monster design in this. It's, excellent stuff. You saw some of it in the trailer, but here's a scene.
This is, when he encounters these monsters, they almost have personalities also, which I really appreciated. So you're getting to see this, look at these beautiful eyes, the eyes on these things. And it's just, they felt like they were monsters that actually weren't just these big plastic things. They felt lived in, and you could feel the gravity on it.
The weight is there. It's beautifully done. It's not, it's like really, it feels like it's really there,
And they're almost not scary until they do stuff like that. Like you're like, but it's just a big frog. What could it possibly do? And then of course, the dog is so great. And he was
There's funny little touches like that.
So many little things like that. And so, you have to really appreciate a film that not only do they have some really good effects, they also have some little, and the humor can be small, like grabbing that hobbit, it can be, and here's him being dragged across the ground, but mostly it's all about, that great creature design with personality, and the dog has personality. I mean, there's a lot, it's filled in. It's not just like, here's this guy, he's going to encounter some things and we're done. Like, they really gave these things a lot of personality. The monsters, the dog, the robot, the people he encounters. Like, the little girl's great.
They're
and she's all like, you're gonna die.
Yeah,
she was a tough chick.
You don't know her backstory, but you get a hint from Michael Rooker's character that she went through some hardship, and she's this young girl, but she's now tough as nails because she's in this world. And Michael Rooker he most of the time plays these these hard ass sort of bad guy characters, but here he's like so likable and good. Like, I would have followed him anywhere in this world
easily. I mean, and that was my main complaint, is that they made them so interesting to me that it was kind of a bummer when he just moved on, and then we just never saw them again until the very end. It's like, I was like, no, don't leave. They were
I thought maybe there was going to be some sort of meet up and whatever, like some sort of change where they were going to meet up together, but that didn't happen. But the ending, where he ends up going to Amy, his girlfriend's name, her colony, which is by the beach.
And they're being rescued.
They're being rescued by these people on a boat. And he's like, oh, okay, you guys are leaving here. So he's kind of bummed out that he's not there as, heralded as a hero. But then things, take a turn.
What I loved about that. So he comes in on the scene, and here she is like, oh, you came. That's so great. But it was kind of like, yeah, so great. And he's like, well, I came because I thought you really went. She goes, oh, and you see that like, ouch, where she doesn't really react the way it's like, oh. And then in comes the guy who's rescuing them. He's a super good looking blonde Australian guy. And he's this very, like take charge, super masculine.
He's the hero. He's the captain's heroing, saving him.
Reminds me so much of when we went to Rwanda. We ended up in a group with this guy who was like special forces. He was blonde. He looked just like the guy in this show. And so when Chad met him, he was kind of like, what? Like, he intimidated every man, and he was super friendly, just like the guy in the film. So it made me laugh because I could see the reaction of like, oh, here's this guy who's super nice, but I hate him because he's good looking. He's confident.
Well, the same thing happened to me. I went out to Australia 20 plus years ago, and we went on an adventure, like a 3 or 4 day adventure tour, and we were doing kayaking and whitewater rafting and all this guys. And the guy was this guy who was like Mel Gibson at age 22. And I remember all the guys were like, oh boy, like here's this, and all the women were just, oh my God, it's like, it's Mad Max, it was friendly Mad Max.
Like if he'd said, okay, we're getting on this boat, come with me. And no matter how shady, I'm like, okay.
I don't care.
I'm coming with you. That's right. Yeah. I liked how that went. That was pretty interesting. It's like, he turns out to not be such a nice guy. Right. And, again, we're talking spoilers, we won't give away everything, but there is a great monster at the end, this giant crab that is the main nemesis at the end. And that doesn't even turn out the way you expect, which, is again, how these creatures have some personality. And I love the line. And that's why I think they really spent a lot of time on the special effects for the eyes, because part of the dialogue was, not all these monsters are bad. Some are good. So they're actually rescued by like this giant slug, in a way it drives off these other monsters, and the kid's like, how do you know if they're good or not? Like, they all look scary, they're all bad. He goes, you can tell by looking in their eyes. And, here's this slug with but it did look kind of kind. I don't know how they did it. So
it looked like the face, I mean, I don't know, it was almost like I would want to say a seahorse face, but it was just this interesting face that was like, oh, that's kind of cute, friendly. It would still freak me out if I saw it, but
it was really big.
But no, the line was, and it was said by Michael Rooker's character, Clyde, saying, if you look in the eyes, you can tell. And that's an important plot point. So there's a lot of smart stuff. I think it's a smart movie. Not only is it fun and it's an adventure and the characters are good, it's actually, there's not a lot of dumb moves. There's no like, oh, why is he doing that? Like, why? It's like, no, that's kind of, he's making the right choice here. I mean, I think I would have stayed with, like I said, I would have stayed with Michael Rooker's character too, but
he was in love.
He was in love. He just had to do it.
He had to find out, but in the end, again, like you said, I want this to do well because I want to see a second one with Michael Rooker in it. Where you kind of get the impression that they're all going to head to the mountains because of higher elevation, the monsters don't live. It's harder for them to live up there. Like, cause a lot of them are, insects that need warmth. And
right.
So they're all saying head to the mountains and you'll survive more. It's better to be up there. And the big thing was like, we got to get out from underground. Humans were not meant to live underground all the time. So they were trying to encourage everyone through like radio contact. Everyone needs to come out and be above ground and learn how to live, with that. Because again, not all of the monsters are bad. It's just one of those look for the hazards,
Yes. Yeah.
And it's one of those things like whenever you talk about it, post-apocalyptic films or video games and whatever, there's always that thing in your head, like, could I do this? Like, how would I be one of the survivors or be one of those people who freeze? Like, I'm always curious about that, because I've played all those video games, the ones post-apocalyptic and you're trying to survive. I'm like, I don't know, man, it looks pretty hard.
Well, if there was a giant spider, I would freeze. Yeah,
that's true.
My that's spider true. Problems, but
see, my problem is I wouldn't be afraid of enough of them because I think they were all cute. And so I always sympathize with the monsters. I always sympathize with the animals. I'd be like dead in 2 seconds because I'm like, that frog is so cute.
Yeah, but there's one monster here that is not really it's not like a giant toad or a giant, cockroach. It's this weird thing takes me right back to the movie Tremors. It's sort of this underground sort of sand gobbler kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what they call it. But it's a great scene because it kind of has a fin and it's almost like a shark.
It's going through the dirt like a
really beautifully shot and intense and scary and good and everything. It's like, oh, these are good scenes.
Yeah. And like, how are you going to escape that? He did smart stuff, the way you're running around and where how you end up. And, he got to use his grenade and that was pretty awesome.
Right. You saw that. So it's just one of those, you sit down, you take a flyer on it and you're so pleasantly surprised and you just want it to be watched and viewed and you want it to have a second life. And I think now in the pandemic, a lot of these movies are getting, how they do on streaming affects maybe their bottom line, whether there's another film made. It's not obviously what's going to be happening at the box office. So it's just one, and I really want to see Michael Matthews' other film, and that's available streaming somewhere. I know that. It's supposed to be a much darker film, much more brutal, kind of a Western, so revisionist Western set South Africa, but the scenes look great. They look intense. So
yeah, I mean, that's why we're doing an episode about it. I mean, we're doing a full episode about it because I feel like it's worth it. Number one, we want more people to see this movie. Yes. And it's like when you discover something like this, you just want to shout it from the rooftops because so often I'm watching movies. Yeah, they're fine. I watch so many movies and series. That's all I do. I do it all day long. But it's like when you see one that kind of pops for you, you're like, wow, this must be like either really good or I'm really tired. I don't know which it is, but
I watch a lot of movies too, and see, okay, you watch the movie, and go, okay, I'm not going to recommend that to anybody. I'm just going to say I saw it.
It's like
then it might be, or I'll see one that's a little bit better and go, oh, I think that's something maybe Kathy or Burke would like, and I'd mention it. And then there's the ones that are like, oh, we definitely have to talk about this.
Yeah.
I really want to push and talk about it, whether we like it or not. Let's talk about it's interesting. Because right after this, I saw the movie In the Earth, the Ben Wheatley.
Oh yeah. I watched that right after too. I watched them right in a row.
Also on Hulu, and that's a completely different film. Much different. And maybe one we don't have to talk about, but I said,
well, yeah, we did a trailer review.
Right. But Love and Monsters is one of those, it's so good and likable and fun and something you get a big bucket of popcorn and watch it. And it's a good time at the movies that you can do it right in your home. That's the way to do it.
Something about also, movies where I see films that, and there's so many big films out there that everybody sees, and it's the same thing, and there's successes. And it always frustrates me when something really good doesn't find its audience. It's so sad to me because this movie should be seen by a lot more people. And I was really bummed when I heard that, of course, the pandemic killed a lot of movies, and it came out anyway, despite the pandemic, and it bombed. Not really bombed, but, I feel like everything bombs now. But it is getting a second life, like you said, on Hulu. And so I'm hoping that a lot more people talk about it because I'm basically going to tell it to everyone who will listen. I mean, when people say, so you guys seen anything good? I'll be, yes, I have seen Love and Monsters. Everyone needs to see that film.
I have a feeling it's going to have the legs that it will sort of find its audience because it's not just the young adult audience or the horror audience. Pretty much anybody likes action, scary, fun, it ticks all the boxes.
It does.
So a lot of people can like this film.
Yeah.
A lot of people can like this film.
In fact, we should do a whole podcast on lost films from the past couple years that didn't quite find their audiences and kind of slipped by,
lost films of the pandemic.
Yes, exactly. Because if we did lost films, that would be a lot. So we had to narrow it down.
But there are more for sure that we're just sort of dumped, and a lot of them are like HBO Max has that deal with Warner.
Yeah,
and there
no
are
one's happy about that,
right? And
stars.
And so there's places to watch these films, but there's so many that don't have that sort of backing, and they just sort of get dumped on Hulu or wherever, Tubi or some these other, and they're lost. Yeah. And there's a lot of time and effort. This was produced by Shawn Levy and Dan Cohen. They do big films.
Yeah.
I think Shawn Levy directed the Free Guy movie. So there's there's people involved with this that know what they're doing. It must have
broke everyone's heart, because I'm sure that they were like, we got this great film, all these A-list people are involved. Even the poster was shot by like an A-list entertainment photographer, Frank Ockenfels, that works in Los Angeles, who's like, if someone's hiring him to shoot their poster, they have high hopes. Because you could get a lot of cheaper people to do it.
Yeah.
So it was really sad to me that after even all this talent, all this quality in this film, it didn't make it. So that's why we're talking to you people. Go out there, watch this movie, and then tell us what you think about it in the comments, and tell us if we're right or wrong. Because I have a hard time believing anyone could watch the film and not like it. It's so good natured and it's so well done. But it's not super gory. It has its moments. You saw the thing blowing up. It's more like that,
Yeah, it's a PG-13
it's a good nature film, but it's not like super safe. It's not like a kids movie, because I get frustrated when I feel like movies are pulling their punches. I didn't get that feeling from this movie, even though it wasn't super gory. I didn't get the feeling like it was pulling back. And
you saw that scene in the trailer. This is where the giant things crushes his parents right in front of him, and that's intense.
Yeah, because they're looking right at him when it happens. Yeah. It's pretty hardcore.
Right.
So it's got its moments for sure. So definitely, I think I talked about this earlier too off mic, but it was like, this would be a great Halloween movie. Like if you're having Halloween night, and if they're going to allow trick-or-treating this year, I hope they are. It's one of those, I always like to watch a horror movie with my husband. It's the one time I can force him to watch a horror movie because he does not like that stuff. So I try and pick one I think he'll like, but I think this was going to be the movie. I was going to do Fear Street, but I think this might be it, because Fear Street's a little more gory.
A little more gory. This is more like a monster movie, not a horror movie. And it's a more of an adventure monster movie.
Yeah.
Almost like you can see Ray Harryhausen doing the effects if this was done in the 50s. It's a lot of, there's Mysterious Island, there's all that kind of stuff, that comes back, these giant, insects. So it's a winner. I give it, a really high,
high marks
rating. Yes, I do. I just think, boy, this was great. And I'm so happy Kathy liked it too. Because
there would have been a problem.
Well,
if I hadn't liked it.
I watch movies, go, boy, I really like this. Should I? And I'll tell you, then I go, well, maybe I was in the mood to watch this, or maybe I was.
I know, we get it wrong sometimes. I mean, we'll refer each other and be like, I don't know about that.
Or I want to, sometimes I want to take back referrals. Like, Kathy, no, don't watch it. Because I'll halfway through a movie, I'm going, hey, it's pretty good. Kathy, check it out. And then I watch the rest of it and go, oh, did that tank? So anyway.
Oh my God.
But this is a good one. And really.
Yeah, truly amazing, Linda.
It was truly amazing. It really was truly amazing. I felt good after I watched it. So that's why I think it's like, when you watch it, you're seeing kind of a scary movie. You watch it, it has a lot of laughs, has some really cool twists in it. It has like those beautiful magical jellyfish floating that are harmless. See, there's also magic with the horrible post-apocalyptic environment. And after you watch it, you're like, that was fun to watch. I liked that. It's like, that's the kind of movie sometimes I'm feeling. I feel like I'm getting a little wimpy these days. I watch a lot of grim shit, but this one was great.
And going back to the relationship or the conversation he has with Mavis, which is the robot, the female robot.
Yes.
It's just very sweet, and you're sad when she goes.
Yeah, when she just kind of, her battery's running low.
It's a really sweet scene, because that's the scene where there's these jellyfish that are floating in the air, and they're totally harmless. So it's this beautiful scene, and he's actually he's talking to somebody, and he's got some friendship, and then he's back to being alone again, just with his dog.
Yeah, and they were playing a song. She played a song for him, and it just cuts off. It was really. I don't know. I just loved it.
It's a good one.
Loved it.
It's like we follow directors, and so when I see a director that does a movie I like, I say, okay, I'm going to go back and see his other films, which I will see as one other film, and hopefully there's many more coming from Michael Matthews.
I'm really looking forward to his next film.
Yeah, and written by Brian Duffield, who does a good job with Underwater. Like these are sort of like journey movies. Like I've got to go from here to there. Underwater was like I've got to go from this underwater thing to that underwater thing.
And that had a lot of humor too. I mean, it had like this one I think was more successful because I feel like it had a firmer grasp on its sort of simple linear storyline. And also, I mean, Underwater, it would be so hard to shoot that stuff. I mean, I don't know how they did, but I still thought, that one had great effects. And a great lead, whoever's casting these films. I mean, does it Dylan O'Brien? Is that the main actor's name who plays
of this film? Yes.
Yeah.
Dylan
He's
O'Brien,
he's in just about every single scene, does all the heavy lifting. He's super likable. He knows how to be scared, but still capable. He's actually really, really great.
And a lot of self-deprecating humor.
Yes.
It's just, he seems like a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
Young adult or older kid, I don't know, 20 years old or something, but he just works. You care about him. You care about him.
I guess he was in the Maze Runner films.
Maze Runner and some other stuff.
I saw a couple of those. Those were fun. They were like a video game, figure out the trick.
Right.
Yeah.
But this one, Love and Monsters, it's on Hulu and maybe some other places, but check it out. You're really going to enjoy it. You get the Cinemondo guarantee on that, at least from Mark.
Don't guarantee anything.
I'm guaranteeing this one.
Don't come to us saying that we guaranteed it and you didn't like it, because that's just not. Just comment about it and that'll be enough.
How much you paying for it, people? It's free. For goodness sake. It's not $25, a streaming thing. So,
exactly. All right, then.
Well, this was fun.
It was very fun.
Yeah, we missed Burke, but he'll be around next time. And don't forget again to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also catch our podcast anywhere good podcasts are sold.
Okay. All right. See you guys next time.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.